Hello, good afternoon. I'm going live a little bit earlier today because I have so much stuff to catch up on. If this is your first time catching me on live or watching one of my videos, I've been documenting my story about being gang stalked in Toronto. I am a failed drug mule recruit, meaning that drug recruiters were trying to recruit me to be a drug mule. I'm speaking out now and have been since November. And you know, in other videos I've kind of talked about how, like, what kind of things they do, how to recognize that you're being groomed to be a drug mule. It is not as straightforward as people would think. It's not just someone coming up to you asking you. It does not work like that. People infiltrate your personal networks, so you are surrounded. And then on top of being surrounded, they want to enter your I forget the term for this. I think they're called your sphere of trust, or your centers of influence. They want to enter your centers of influence, basically meaning, you know, your family being around. If they can't be around you, they'll be around people who are your family and who are your friends. They get close to people who are close to you, so that they can impact those people's opinions of you. They also get in positions, in like friendship positions. In my situation, people got close to my staff, people worked for me, they got their people to apply to job listings that I had, on and on and on. It was endless. It's been endless. So yeah, I just put the information out so that people can just start understanding, like, when your social networks start changing and changes are happening that you did not initiate, perhaps just be on the lookout for what's going on. I also make these videos for people going through gang stalking right now actively. I want to be putting out information that is going to be beneficial as far as, you know, what you're going through. Not everybody's going through a drug recruitment. There's different reasons why you'd be gang stalked. But also just kind of looking at mistakes that I made, things that I recognized right away were not going to be beneficial to me, and just giving general advice on how to get through it and how to cope with it. Today, I want to talk about preparing to make reports, because that is where a lot of people fail. Because a lot of people, when they present the issue of gang stalking, it's being presented in such a way where it's very easy to dismiss it because of the kind of the kind of information that you're delivering. So one of the ways that I like to look at gang stalking is almost like high school bullying. It's childish and it's petty. There's a percentage of things that are going to happen that are just childish, petty behaviors. So things that are happening to harass you, but even if you were to report it to the police, it's not something the police can do anything about. It's not something that there's a specific law they can say, well, this person's breaking this law by every day being outside of your house, standing and staring at you as they light a cigarette. The thing about that, and a lot of gangs do that, a lot of groups that intimidate people, they do stuff like that. The thing about that is, while it's intimidating to you, it is not against the law. So I just want to go over a ton of stuff having to do with how to make reports and how to strengthen the chance of you being taken seriously when you make a report, so that your report can be investigated, because that's important. Okay, first things first, you need to like really establish fact versus assumption versus fiction. A fact is something that absolutely happened. Even though it's not verifiable, it's something that happened. You can put in the report, on this day, at this time, somebody did this. That's a fact. The person, let's say at this day, at this time, someone was parked outside my home and they lit and smoked a cigarette while staring at me. That's a fact. The assumption, so that's what happened. The assumption is, why is it happening? So the first time that happens, you may not notice. The second or third time, you may see it, you may notice it, and it may become a pattern. But once you start saying why you think it's happening, that is an assumption that you're making. I want to make one more note here because I don't want to forget this. Once you make an assumption as to why this is happening, you're now assuming. So you can be assuming that it because of your personal experience, you can assume that this is happening because somebody's trying to intimidate me. You can assume that that's what's happening. But the thing is, you have to acknowledge that that's an assumption. You cannot just go in and say, this is the fact that happened, but I'm assuming it's happening because I'm being gang stalked or because I'm being whatever. You can make a responsible assumption by establishing a pattern over time. So if there's a pattern of behavior, for example, every single day at 8 p.m., starting on this date to this date, somebody stands outside my house smoking a cigarette, and you have pictures of them from this date to this date, establishing the same person or a different person, whoever, performing the same behavior or exhibiting the same behavior is standing outside your house smoking a cigarette, then this becomes a stronger report. You need to establish the pattern. The thing about establishing this assumption that you're making is there a law that's being broken, and is it worth proving? So yes, this is happening. It's been verified. So imagine yourself like this. If you went to the police and they say, okay, well, we see that you have 120 pictures over 120 days of this action. Well, we can't do anything about it. We can't do anything about it. They may go to that person. Let's say it's one person. They may go to that person and say, why are you always outside that house smoking and looking at that person? They can say, I work in the building across over here. And what you've done is not just, yes, you've proven an assumption, and yes, you'll feel dejected and disappointed that it didn't mean anything, or, you know, it's not actionable. But in the mind of the person that you're making the report to, you've lost a bit of credibility. So what you want to do is not lose credibility in making your report, because these people work very hard to harass you in very covert ways. They are minor, they are microaggressions. That's why I call it it's like high school behavior. It's like high school behavior. If you're in high school, or thinking back to high school, somebody doesn't like you and you have a class with them, or you're in the hallway with them. All of a sudden, because of the dislike that you both have for each other, your energy takes up a lot of space in the hallway, and so does theirs. You guys, whether or not you're looking at each other or paying attention to each other, you're very aware that that person's there. However, because you don't like them, their presence feels antagonizing to you. But that doesn't mean that they've antagonized you. So you going and making a report to a teacher and saying, well, she always stands in the hallway or always does this and that when I'm there, is going to be laughable, and no one's going to take it seriously. And it's not because she knows. So part of the things that people do when they know that you guys don't like each other is, if they're going to be in the hallway, they're going to speak louder, they're going to laugh louder, they're going to be extra phony with their friends to make you feel uncomfortable, to make you feel like, you know, isolated from the group and outside the group and etc. But the thing is, it's not reportable. It's not reportable. So because of that, your attention is what you can control. You can control if you're paying attention to the behaviors that are childish or not. The majority of gang stalking behaviors are meant for you to self-sabotage. It's not, they should not be doing things to directly derail your life. It's meant to put you in a headspace that causes you to self-sabotage, that causes you to feel insecure, that causes you to feel excluded, that causes you to feel gaslit, etc. But they're not supposed to be criminal offenses. And they're supposed to do this for a prolonged period of time until you start self-sabotaging enough. So instead of taking up space energetically in a room when you walk in, you're going to cower. You're not going to show your face. You're not going to want to come around. You're going to assume that the world is against you and that people don't like you. Please be very aware of the things that you bother reporting. I say this with all love because I want you to be successful in making your reports. Be careful in what you're reporting. So there's fact versus fiction, and the final one, fact versus assumption, and the final one is fiction. When you've been under a state of harassment with very childish, immature behavior from adults who snicker and who do all this nonsense, when you've been under this for long enough, you start assuming that everything is an attack on you, and everything is not an attack on you. Sometimes life happens. Sometimes, someone's just a jerk for whatever reason. Sometimes you just didn't get approved for something. Sometimes something is not supposed to happen. Sometimes it's your fault. Sometimes you forgot something. Excuse me, but when you are being targeted, and especially for a prolonged period of time, you start thinking that everything is the targeting. And then you start wanting to explain, but what about this and but what about that? And it sounds ridiculous from a mind who's never conceived that this could be possible, or from someone who, like the police, they're trained to look for people breaking the law. They're not trained to look for petty grievances. They can't do anything about that. Please, if you're listening to this and you're being gang stalked, please write this information down. It is important. Tape it up and start guiding your mind towards reality-based complaints, reports, and picking and choosing the things you want to prove. Picking and choosing the things that you think are worth proving as to whether or not someone actually is breaking the law in regards to you. Now, I do believe that there should be a law against a consistent pattern of harassing someone, no matter how childish or petty the actions are. But unfortunately, for some of this stuff, for a lot of the stuff that they do, there's no law against it. Where they go wrong is where they get so desperate that they start breaking the law because they're not getting the results that they're supposed to get. So if every day they were just laughing at you, but you ignore them and you walk away, when they start slandering you, then they've broken the law. So you have to be very sure to be very specific about the things that you're choosing to complain about, and the things you're choosing to document, and the things that you're choosing to prove. You really need to establish, like, is this even worth it? You need to establish whether or not it's even worth it. Give me a second. You can literally feel evil eye. I can feel evil eye. And when I feel projections, I gotta send people's energy back to them. I don't like it. I don't like feeling weird energy around me. But that's just me. Now, a lot of people who go through gang stalking are spiritual. I'm deeply spiritual myself. Obviously, I talk about it all the time. However, deeply spiritual or not, you're not reporting spiritual stuff. There's no point to that. Spiritual law is not governed in courts. It's not governed in police stations. There's no point in you coming in and saying, I believe I'm this. I believe they're doing this for this spiritual purpose, whatever the case is. It is best for you just to leave it at, I don't know why this is happening to me, because truly you don't know. You don't. It's important for you to know or to establish or to prove why things are happening. In my case, I got seriously lucky where part of what they had to do was to approach me to do something very specific. So John Ferreira did specifically ask me to sell drugs. People did specifically call me. There was a consistent pattern of repetition and of behavior that made it possible for me to report and say, this is why I believe this is happening. And that really helps, because that's one of the questions that they're going to ask is like, well, why do you believe this is happening? It would be nice to be able to say why you think it's happening, and if you don't, like, no one can knock you for that. It's happening, and you know, people that, you know, the police should be looking into it, right? But you do have to think twice about the way you present a report and, you know, what you want to get out of things, because there needs to be an offense. They can agree with you, like, yeah, this is weird, this is bizarre behavior, etc. They can agree with you all they want, but they need to be able to do something, because remember, getting convictions on things are not even easy when there's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of semantics when it comes to the law. So you have got to be careful of what you're wasting your time with and making sure that you're putting your time into the right things. This is important when preparing a report, okay? This is where you need to step away from spirituality and where you need to use common sense. You know what? I write notes and then I like naturally follow the notes down, which I really like. Proper documentation to establish facts. This is important. This is something that I tend to be really good at, is documentation. So once I become aware that something's happening, there's a pattern of behavior, I just start like an open report and I just continually update the report throughout time. Now, I knew that I was collecting facts for a long time. So sometimes, you know, I get documents, I get screenshots of things, I get people's names for all the staff that worked for me. I have copies of their legal government ID. I have all kinds of information. I have looked into people. I like to get concrete information, not just saying someone's name, but giving enough information that the police can actually go and say, we can very easily find this person. They have resources. They have, like, if you're in the US, they have the IRS. If you're in Canada, you have the CRA. If you say that this particular date, somebody who worked at the building across from you at this office or at this store or at this whatever, they have the tax documents to go back and find out at this time, did somebody named, you know, person ABC work there, and then they can verify it and then they can trace them back. And it's like, you know, they can do their job, but you want to really give good documentation that's logical and that has some pretty decent facts to it. Now, of course, they're sending so many different people around you. A lot of times you can't get documentation. And what I found was, you know, obviously the cars that these people are driving have fake plates on them. So because of the plates on the cars, you're not always going to the plates didn't mean too much. We had a whole bunch of plates that we had given to the police, and the people driving the vehicles didn't match the description of the plates in my particular case, so it didn't make sense. It would have, had I kept them, the plates in reports, again, it would have just taken away from the credibility of what I am reporting. Please have pictures of things in your reports. I didn't just give people's names. I also had pictures of them. It's very easy to find people when they start fucking playing games. Excuse my language. I don't like swearing on here. It's very easy. People don't know just how much information there is about them on the internet. There's stuff from all over. And don't go announcing while you're doing all of this as well. You gotta be quiet the entire time. You gotta be quiet. You got to just walk through and let people do what they're doing. It's like you're conducting an investigation. You got to wait for things to happen. You can't go right away and think that you're going to have a very established report in a short space of time. It takes time to establish patterns. And if sometimes it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years, like you may make a report, let's say within a year, and you've established that first report. So you may have your initial report when everything's happening. And then you'll make another report and that nothing happens from that report. And you make another report in a year and nothing happens from that report. But you keep building it. You keep building it. You keep giving it time and you keep adding onto it and establishing a pattern. And then resubmitting the report in an updated fashion that is more logical, more concise, and more clear, where you're separating fact from assumption from fiction. So what you're handing in is actually something that is actionable, that's going to get you results. And that's really what you're looking for. You need a lot of details on witnesses and on culprits and as much as you can get. And I'm not saying you can often get a lot, but in my particular situation, you know, I kind of had established the main person that I wanted to make reports on, John Ferreira, who has boldly called himself a chief handler. You want to establish information on these people. These people have criminal records a lot of the times. These people have street connections that it's going to be very easy for the police to identify, like, yeah, this person has a history with the drug culture. Yeah, this person, it's not their first time being arrested. Okay, well, what else are they getting into? Okay, well, let's look into their lifestyle. Let's look into their taxes. Let's look into their travel history. Let's look into this. Like, you have to pick a focus that makes sense and you stick with it and you get super good documentation, or you get enough information where good documentation can be found by the police. All right? Again, clear, concise story. Very clear, very concise. If somebody asks me today what has happened to me, I can give an elevator pitch. You have 30 to 60 seconds in an elevator, so I can very quickly convey what's happened to me without bouncing and all over the place. When I originally was telling this story, it would take like an hour to tell the story, and now again I can do it within like 30 to 60 seconds. I've been gang stalked, I've been followed everywhere, I've been slandered, harassed, and pushed out of business for the purpose of me being a drug mule. See how clean that is? That's easy. That's an easy story. And then from there you can elaborate. That's the point that you want to come to. It's good to talk about your story online as well. It's good to tell that story. It's good to keep having people ask the question and you keep retelling it, because it brings you to a place where if you had to be a witness, you can be a very clear witness. Courts like facts. That's all they want to work with. They don't want to be assuming things. That's not, you can't convict people on assumptions. You want to be a very clear, logical witness and someone who is going to tell a story, and you want to be taken seriously. Why do I always advise people to be very patient with themselves and through this process is because it takes time to establish a story. Just like it takes the police time to establish an investigation. They are monitoring people's activities for extended periods of time, and nobody disturbs people while they're breaking the law. Not these kinds of investigations. They don't bring cults and drug families and are able to get warrant, like, you know, get a RICO and all of that. They don't do that the same way they go investigate a car being broken into. A car being broken into is a specific incident. A gang stalking family is not one incident. It is multiple victims. It is multiple occurrences. It is patterns of breaking the law. It needs to be established. 1, 2, or 3 incidences might not be breaking the law, but the consistent pattern of behavior whereby they profit off of the harassment of people is abso-fucking-lutely breaking the law. So it takes time. This is why I say, yes, you're sitting in it for 6 months, for 1 year, for 2 years, for 3 years, because even if the police are not investigating it, you're doing your job to investigate what's going on, to take, the first time your tire gets punctured over a series of time, over a period of time, now it establishes a pattern of behavior. This is what I'm saying. Give me a second for my phone. Grabbing my phone charger. Ooh. Grabbing my phone charger. Give me 5 seconds. Let me plug this in. Okay. Wait a minute. Did I turn this off? There we go. Okay. So, as I was saying, I was using punctured tires as an example because I had so many punctured tires in the last 2 years. I've fixed it at different times so often that I'm just gonna hold it up. I've fixed so many different tires at so many different times that I can establish a pattern of behavior that is odd. When people think about or look how many times they've had a punctured tire prior to, the set of dates that you've said you've been gang stalked, they can establish that, yeah, you did have quite a bit for the last 2 years. And now you can go and you can get a history of that. Now you can keep your invoices. Now you can verify what's going on with you. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it does take time, and you need to take the time. Rome was not built in a day. You need to be able to put a separation between things that are harassing behaviors to you and that feel antagonizing versus things that are actually breaking the law and reportable. Anytime something breaks the law and is reportable, then you can report it and you can document it. Anytime it's something harassing, maybe put it in a separate report, or you can maybe include it in the report but not make it like a main thing that you're trying to establish per se. And whatever is just harassing and annoying, you have to continue and go about your day. You do not have to pay attention to that. And I always say your attention is optional. Your fear is optional and your attention is optional. Like, in the beginning, it is very scary circumstances, but the fear is optional. The fear is optional. It's going to happen either way. Also, it's very harassing stuff and it's antagonizing to you, but the attention to it is optional as well. You can decide that people are irrelevant. There are some people in this situation, in my personal situation, I consider irrelevant. I don't care. It's not that they're not massively guilty. It's not like they're not fighting for my attention, but I've just decided that they're inferior and I'm just not going to give them my attention. They just don't deserve it and they're never going to get it no matter what they do. They are always going to be ignored, and that's the end of that. This character does not get a name. If we made a movie, we wouldn't hire any actors to play them. They're just of no emotional significance to me. Now, that may make that person feel antagonized by me. And that's, oh well. You shouldn't be in my sphere. You shouldn't be in my world. And so I decide who gets a role in my world. So there are a lot of people throughout this time that I just don't believe are relevant enough for me to go out of my way to put them in a report and establish things, against them. Those people I leave for spirit to handle. And sometimes it's too difficult to prove it anyway. Yes, it's happened, but can you prove it? And again, don't go chasing your tail. Pray about it and let it go. Release it. You don't even need to look back on, well, is anything happening to them or anything like, no, it does. If God wants you to know that they got karma, you're going to know. If God doesn't feel it's relevant to tell you, then it's deeply irrelevant and it's not going to impact your day, and just move on with it. Not everything is gang stalking. I think I went over that. Oh, great, paper fell. Not everything is gang stalking. Some things are just you, and some things are just life. Don't give people more credit than they deserve. Sometimes things are just not supposed to happen. They're not supposed to be on your life path, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. No need to report it. No need to feel bad about it. No, like none of the above. Just call it a day. Move on with your life. Have a great day. People know this is happening for sure. You're not alone. People know this is happening. Like, journalists know this is happening. People who report on drug culture, they know about this stuff. They've experienced it. That's why they want nothing to do with it. There's all kinds of situations. They either not don't want anything to do with it, or they've tried to prove it and they can't, or they've been harassed themselves. It's like all kinds of things. It's not for you to assume. It's for you to make your report, and it is for the police to serve and protect you. They're supposed to make sure that you're okay. So just do what you're supposed to do. Again, your attention is optional. You can absolutely be followed and make a decision to not look in the rearview mirror every 5 seconds. I don't know what you're supposed to, how often you're supposed to look back there. 30 seconds, a minute, whatever. I don't know. But you need to take away your attention for the sake of your mental health, for the sake of your ability to move on, to get work done, to live a happy life. For me, I prioritize 1 hour a day to come and tell my story. And if not tell my story, just share things that I can help people with. I think it's really important that we start being responsible with the way that we tell our story to make sure that we're taken seriously. And I'm going to tell you, there is hope for you to walk around free. If you do not have a schedule, that helps. If you use cash wherever you go, that helps. If you don't have your phones on and have tracking, or your phone's a tracking device, that helps. And I'll tell you, someone takes a massive risk by putting a tracking device on your car. Because if you're saying that you're being stalked and they find a tracker on your car, you don't need to prove a goddamn thing. You're done. Game over. That's it. You don't need to prove anything beyond that. Someone has to be a lunatic to do that in this day and age. I know back in the day they used to do that. Back in the day they absolutely used to put tracking devices on people's cars, but they don't do that anymore from what I understand. But you never know. You never know. So, keep an eye out, look at how things are going, and then, go from there. Watch my survival guide. It is in the description box of my videos on YouTube. It will give you a lot of good insight into how to take care of your mental health. Your mental health is so extremely important at this time. I cannot stress it. It is your number one priority to take care of yourself. Take extremely good care of yourself. Now, there are things that I've never been good at, like making sure I get proper sleep and stuff like that. I have to work on my schedules and work on stuff like that. But you should get proper sleep because it definitely helps. You should take care of yourself. You should prioritize self-care. If you have to take a day off to prioritize personal matters that really need taking care of so that they don't present an issue later, please do that. And yeah, I give tips on how to alleviate the actual stalking part of what's going on, because proving that you're being stalked when so many different people are following you around all the time is extremely difficult. So I try to make sure that I can alleviate that as much as possible. It's come to a point where it's very predictable when I can be followed. And it's very easy to establish when I won't be followed or when I don't want to be followed. I walk around free majority of the day. So many days that I don't, like, this is irrelevant. The part of if I'm followed or if I'm not is irrelevant. And I'm also dealing with someone who is owing very dangerous people money and is probably in a life or death situation, as far as trying to make sure that they do something that they cannot do. We are beyond the point where people can really do what they're supposed to do to me. It's not gonna happen, you know. There's not gonna be a day where I'm gonna fall for the nonsense. No matter how much they penetrate my social networks, no matter what they do, no one can convince me to get on a plane with them. And that's the end of it. And so it really just makes any further action a waste of money and futile, but you can't tell people what to do. And also the point of at we're at, this situation is so loud and so many people know about it, including the police and the authorities. There's only so many times your name is going to be mentioned to the authorities where they start saying, it's been repeated enough times. It's the power of repetition. If you repeat anything between 7 to 9 times, someone starts taking it for the truth. That's how the slander works against you. That's how ads and insurance, not insurance, but companies, that's how they establish reputations and they push, you know, sales and all of that between 7 to 9 times. It's going to take you a while. Hang in there, be strong, be logical, balance your spiritual, your love of spirituality and your spiritual devotion. Balance that between reality. You live on earth, and we are, you know, we live by a set of rules that even though you feel like you believe in spirituality deeply, you have to also understand, like, everything is not spiritual. Like, you're not going to go into a court of law and be thinking about, and people are talking about spiritual things. So sending lots of love. I am done early today. I thought I would be on here for an hour, and I'm happy I'm not, because I got to get to a bunch of stuff that I have just not had time to do. I wanted to listen. I don't know if anybody here reads the Bible. I know my followers are probably not going to be my followers on Instagram. Hold on. How do I do this? This filter is so weird. The filter is so weird. Where is it? There we go. Okay. I don't know how to do that. Anyway, I wanted to introduce you guys to Psalms 30 because I found it last night when I was looking for something and my brain said Psalm 30 and I read it, and I just want to read it tonight. I usually read the spirit cards that I have. I had a couple polls that came up, but I want to read Psalms 30 because it really resonated to me. This is from the old King James Version. This is my Bible, guys. My Bible is white. This is my Bible. I actually bought this Bible at Oakville Place Mall. And yeah, I'd never seen a white Bible before, so I had to get it. But I want to share this because this resonated with me. This is exactly how I felt after everything that I'd gone through, because these were the kind of prayers that I was praying. So I do want to share it with you guys. And even if you don't have a Bible, you can also just go on YouTube and search different chapters. Like you can put Psalms 30, Psalms 91, Psalms whatever, and it'll bring it up. So this is Psalms 30. I will extol thee, O Lord, for thou hast lifted me up and hast not made my foes to rejoice over me. O Lord my God, I cried unto thee, and thou hast healed me. If I tell you the amount of things that I felt happening to my body during going through this process, I was supposed to be sick maybe about 1,000 times over, and I was not sick once, not one time. O Lord, thou hast brought up my soul from the grave. Thou hast kept me alive, that I should not go down to the pit. Sing unto the Lord, O ye saints of his, and give thanks at the remembrance of his holiness. For his anger endureth but a moment, in his favor is life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. And in my prosperity I said, I shall never be moved. Lord, by thy favor thou hast made my mourning to stand strong. Thou didst hide thy face, and I was troubled. I cried to thee, O Lord, and unto the Lord I made supplication. Supplication is different from prayer in that it is more intense, and it is asking, it's requests for very specific things. That's supplication. What profit is there in in my blood? Let me start again. What profit is there in my blood when I go down to the pit? Shall the dust praise thee? Shall it declare thy truth? Hear, O Lord, and have mercy upon me. Lord, wait, hold on. Hear, O Lord, and have mercy upon me. Lord, be thou my helper. Thou hast turned for me my mourning into dancing. Thou hast put off my sackcloth and girded me with gladness, to the end that my glory may sing praise to thee, and not be silent. O Lord my God, I will give thanks unto thee forever. This is like my Psalms 23. This is like, as soon as I said it, I was like, I wanted to change it to my name. I think it is the most beautiful psalm ever. It speaks exactly about what I've gone through. God has not made me ashamed in front of my enemies. God has made me proud. God has made me walk proudly for the trouble that I have endured. God has been there with me, turned my cries and my tears into smiles, into gladness. I know that prosperity is on the way. I know that I am coming to the point where, I'm going to get justice for exactly what's happened to me. I can see the suffering of the people who've done this to me. I ignore a lot of petty behavior because it's irrelevant. They are now irrelevant in my reality. They just exist because I have a public platform, but had I not had a public platform, I wouldn't see them at all. It's crazy. I spent my time being gang stalked, becoming so close to God, working on so many triggers and healing so many things, and I'm still healing. Finding joy in my heart, finding my boundaries. And one more thing I want to mention, please ignore people. Like, I don't engage with people one-on-one with nonsense for the most part. Like, there's times where every single time I found myself engaging in it and being triggered to like respond to something, I've just fell into the traps that they've wanted me to. It's just been a journey. It's evolved in so many ways, but it's now gone from being such a tragedy to being my story, being my testimony, being something that I'm very proud of, something that has proven who I am, not just to me, but to the people around me, and most especially my enemies. And they're embarrassed. I beat their system by myself. They made sure that I was by myself, and I did it by myself, me and God. When I say by myself, I mean physically by myself, but because I never walk alone. God is always physically present with me. God is always with me. And I think God, if you call on God and you're sincere and your heart is open, provided that you're on the right side of karma, I think God shows up. God shows up for people 100%. So I'm going to keep that with you guys instead of doing the spirit cards today. I would go order a Bible. They're fairly cheap. I think I got this for like $14. I don't think they were that cheap when I was younger. I keep my Bible with me. I read it at night. I pray first, then, whichever comes first, prayer or meditation. It's very important to me. More than just at night. It's like multiple times. It's not always just, in the morning and at night. If I have time, I would definitely be doing it a lot more. It's something that I'm very disciplined about, and I enjoy it. I need it, for me to feel good. And it's like, I bounce back, after that. So be very, and let me tell you, in the time, like, they've been very specific about always trying to disrupt that time, disrupt prayers, disrupt meditations and stuff like that. I always feel like there's some kind of blockage. Not always, but a lot of the times there's a blockage, and I don't care. When it's time to meditate, I meditate. When it's time to pray, I pray, and nothing comes between that. And that's just that on that, right? sending out lots of love to everyone. Please be safe. Thank you guys for watching my videos, and please do comment and let me know how it resonates with you, and just let me know, you know, like what you're going through as well. I like when I talk to people, because then I also subscribe to your channels, I watch your videos, I help your stuff, you know. I'm always gonna like and comment and let you know that I'm there and you're reaching people and you can connect, and there is a community out there for you. You know, all of us are going through the same things. So have a lovely day, and I will talk to you guys later.